Oh, here I'm Charlie Hamlin back on the course along with Andy Card as we wait for the final race of the day, 10 o'clock, 10:45 rather, with the varsity crews. And as we wait for the crews to become aligned and get ready to race the 4-mile classic, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the two coaches that lead these incredible programs. I was talking to Andy a little bit, and I don't know that we should call it a rivalry, but maybe it is a rivalry. But you know, Steve Gladstone, when I was back at Harvard in the late '60s, he was the coach of the lightweight crew.
Sure.
At Harvard.
To great success too.
And then he went on, and you can talk much more about this, to great successes at other schools. And Harry, starting back in 1963, this is his 51st season coaching Harvard crew. It's just the rock on which Harvard crew has been built over the years. It's just truly an amazing history. Andy, I read an article in the New York Times not too long ago about the greatest coaches in the crew in the U.S. And the great omission was the fact that Harry Parker was listed there. You have to realize that 51 seasons and a winning record that I don't think has been matched by any coach of 83% of the time that his crews go on the water, they win. 83%. That goes back to a record of 199 wins to 41 losses when we're looking at overall regattas, and it's even more. It's 88% when you look at just dual racing. His crews have won 24 sprint titles, 9 national championships. They've gone on to win the Grand Challenge, the ladies' plate over at Henley.
Well, you know,
it's truly. Do we know of any other coach that has achieved that level of?
Well, you mentioned Harry's 9 national titles. Coach Gladstone has 11 national titles, and you know, if Harry is the rock at Harvard, he's been at one place with a long string of excellence. Right. Steve has jumped around from place to place, and everywhere he's gone, success has followed him.
Right.
You know, you did mention he started coaching in '66 with the Princeton freshman heavies for 3 years, and then he went on to success with the Harvard lightweights.
Yep.
Then he went out to Cal from '73 to '80 and had 1 national title there. Then to Brown from '81 to '94, he had 5 national titles at the IRA. And then back to Cal for '97 to 2008, where he added 5 more to his total for 11. And now, you know, after a few years away from collegiate coaching, he's back at Yale.
Yeah.
So, you know, both successes.
He's come home in a sense.
Yeah.
To the Northeast.
There's only Cornell, Columbia, Penn left in the Ivy League for him to coach. So, Dartmouth as well.
Yeah.
But the idea here is that these two coaches, wherever they've gone, whether they've stayed at home, right, if you will, or you know, traveled to many schools, success follows them.
Yeah. You know, and I think when you look back on Harry's, when Harry started this, and I don't know if Steve's where he grew up in rowing, but Harry was at Penn.
Yep.
Olympian, 5th place in the '60 Olympics under the tutelage of Joe Burke, one of the great scullers of all times, and that really set him on this course. And he came back to the Olympics. You know, in 1968, he coached the Harvard crew to an Olympic berth and into the finals, and then went on to coach some of the women into Olympic titles. Mm-hmm. So it's truly a great career that we all hope continues.
Well, he was a lightweight size guy.
Yeah.
You know, fortunate for the league, perhaps, that he didn't take over the lightweights, but he's certainly a legend. How many times can you say that? Yeah. I mean, it's, you know. But he's also a competitor, and he wants to win today, I'm sure. You know, all the other races in the past have been very important to him, but I'm sure today is the day he wants to win.
Well, that's exactly every race. I don't think you'll find too many people that are as fundamentally but quietly as competitive as this guy is. It was fascinating. You know, back in the 70s, maybe even the 60s, we used to have something called the Newell Triathlon, where you had to row 7,500 meters on the erg, you had to run 4 miles, and you had to do a tour of the Harvard Stadium. And I think it was probably the mid-'80s before Harry couldn't beat half of his own crew. So there you go. So it sort of set a stage and an expectation on the part of the oarsman. If you did what Harry told you to do, you had a pretty good chance of winning.
83% of the time.
83% of the time.
Sure.
So there you go. Of course, that was a bit of a burden on some of us, too, because you didn't want to be the first crew, and I must admit I was the first crew that lost after he took over his tenureship. Well, anyway, enough of reminiscing. Harvard is on the stake boats now, and Yale is backing into its stake boat, so we should have a race going off fairly quickly here. And let me give you a rundown of the Harvard crew, or maybe you should start off, Andy. Tell us who the Harvard the Yale crew is.
This Yale varsity is a very international varsity, as we talked about. I'll run down the crew quickly, but it does have two Brits in it, a Kiwi, 2 Germans, 2 Australians, and 2 Americans. And it's a very young crew. There are no seniors in this crew. The crew was 3-3 on the year, trying to find their footing. They lost to Brown, Princeton, and Cornell, and they've defeated Pennsylvania, Columbia, and Dartmouth. As we mentioned before, they came in 5th at the sprints, making the grand final for Yale for the first time in a while, in recent memory. And they were 7th, winning the petite final at the IRA just a week ago. And this lineup has remained the same since the IRA. The coxswain is a junior, Oliver Fletcher, from London and Eton College. We've all heard of that school. Great rowing school. Adam Smith, a freshman, is stroking the Yale varsity in the 4 miler. That's got to be a history. And he's a historical person. His name is Adam Smith, not the economist, but the Kiwi from Auckland Grammar School. 7th seed is a German, sophomore, Clemens Barth. 6 seeds, Tom Pagel, another freshman from Abingdon School in the UK. 5 seed is Hubert Trubinsky, a freshman from Germany who has many international medals to his credit. 4 seed, Simon Keaton, a sophomore from Australia and Xavier College. 3 seed, Dave DeVries, a freshman from San Diego, California, and the Culver Military Academy. 2 seat veteran Zach Johnson. He's a junior from Redwood School out in Ross, California. And the bow seat is Owen Symington. He's a junior from Australia and Wesley College in Melbourne.
And the Harvard boat, as we wait for the start, is coxed by David Fuller out of Chestnut Hill from Belmont Hill School. He's a senior. The stroke is Andrew Holmes out of Loch Winnock, Scotland. Charles Risby from Melbourne, Australia, is holding down the 7th seat. Vincent Breet from Alberton, South Africa, who's the freshman in the boat, is holding down the 6th seat. Parker Washburn from the great Washburn coaching family from Andover and all over the Northeast is sitting in the 5th seat. Josh Hicks from Waterford, Australia. Andrew Reed from Wayland, Massachusetts. James O'Connor from Christchurch, New Zealand's in the 2 seat, and James Medway from Pymble, Australia, is in the bow. And this Harvard crew has had a very successful season, winning all of its dual races and then going on to win the sprints by a good open water margin. They went out to test their mettle against the great crews from Washington in the IRAs, and finished a very strong 2nd in that race to a very powerful Washington crew. So this is a great crew, one of Harry's great crews. One of our fellow coaches said that they'd rarely seen a college crew that rows as well as this one does. So, and they're not huge. They're when they raced the sprints and stood side by side to the Northeastern crew, it looked almost as if it was a substantially smaller crew. So, good racing, good stroking, and real close work among this crew makes them fast.
Well, I think there's a lot of excitement on the Yale side, too. As we mentioned, there's no seniors in there, which is a sign that the recruiting that Steve Gladstone is able to do is starting to pay off, that these guys are quality guys. And again, there's 4 freshmen in there, which is remarkable. Not too many schools have that many freshmen in their varsity. I'm sure there's been some growing pains with that.
Yeah.
Adam Smith, of course, is doing a very good job. I mean, Steve knows rowing, and if he feels like a freshman is up to the task, he's up to the task. There's no, you're just a freshman, you can't do this. Right. He's asking Adam Smith to do it today in his first go at the 4 miler. So there's a lot of excitement. I think the way they finished the IRA, yes, they wanted to make the grand final. Yes, they wanted to get in the medals. And ultimately, of course, they want to get their 12th national title for Coach Gladstone. But, you have to take steps. You can't just get there overnight and snap your fingers. I think there's a lot of excitement.
No one doubted, Andy, that when Steve came to Yale, that the Yale program would under his guidance and under his history of success, wouldn't be able to move the Yale program forward in a way that would make them very, very competitive. And frankly, I think that all of us who rode with the crimson jerseys on would want this. We'd love to have this race and this institution continue to be very, very competitive between these two great colleges.
Well, it is a vital piece of American sport.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't get, now it's streaming, but it usually isn't on TV, and you used to have to come to the Thames River to actually watch it,
right.
Aside from reading a report about it. But it is a vital piece of our history, since it's the original intercollegiate competition of all time in the United States, and
the first.
I think yes, absolutely, and it can remain a vital competition in the years to come, and certainly trading victories back and forth would energize this race like no other situation.
You know, I'll say something heretical here, but you know, one of my wishes is that this race could pit all of the Yale crews against all of the Harvard crews. Heavyweights, lightweights, women, the whole nine. It really would make it for a tremendous regatta.
Well,
whether that'll ever happen in your lifetime or mine, I doubt it, but it would be a great event.
Well, it's happened in England. We talked about the boat race before.
Yeah.
You know, now there are women's crews going to participate in 2015, I believe, and the lightweights as well.
Well, we took this race.
Never say never.
This race was sort of built on the heritage of that. Perhaps so we can follow in their footsteps. So we're close to beginning this race. Both boats seem to be on the stake boats. Yale had a little bit of trouble, had to pull away, and now is back on the stake boats. We can see that they're locked on now. We're hidden a bit from view here, as I'm sure the video shows, by the buttresses of the 95 bridge. But we'll see them emerge from that very shortly, as the race should be going off momentarily. Looks like the liner is working to get these boats clear, and he's now raised his white flag, signifying that the boats indeed are aligned and therefore ready to race.
This is going to be an exciting race. Really, the burden is on Yale here, just to be hanging around wherever Harvard is. They don't want Harvard to get, you know, like they did in the JV, get open water on them and just sit.
So we're looking for the flag of the starter to go up. That'll signify that everybody's ready to race. They're still moving.
And there's the start. The 4-miler has begun.
Yep.
Harvard
at 45.
Right, a little bit shorter the initial strokes, and now everybody's lengthening out.
Yale at 44.
You know, I've been doing this race for a while. I've typically seen Yale pump out to an early lead, and Harvard rose through them. Now Harvard has got about a half a length lead as they come by us. So something a little different there.
Yep. You know, there's very different kind of starting strategies, I think, Andy, and that is either longer strokes to get that almost 2,000 pounds of boat and people moving, versus a much shorter stroke and much higher rates. If that's the secret to getting fast off the start, I'm not sure which is the best, but different crews use different strategies to begin a race, especially one that is as long as this.
Right. The main thing is to get off to a good start and something that you can get into your rhythm.
Yeah. Yale's now down to 34, and Harvard about the same stroke rate.
Both these crews, I'm sure, are aware it's going to be a long race.
Yeah.
With the wind the way it is and going upstream. You can't just burn it out in the first 4 minutes.
You know, if the video crew would sort of pan upstream, you get a sense of the distance that these boats have to race. It's 4 miles is forever. We've all sat on the starting line of a 2,000 meter race and looked down and said, geez, one more time, God, just let me make 2,000 meters.
You never turn around and look. That's a good thing only the coxswains can see. Right now, Harvard holding about a half a length lead over Yale.
Yeah.
Again, as in the JV race, it's the burden is on Yale to match speed with Harvard. They don't need to be ahead, but they need to be hanging around and matching speed and matching stroke for stroke power.
Yeah.
And I'd say they're doing that right now.
Yale's at 33.
Very conservative rate. Could be a very intelligent choice. early in the race until perhaps they get into the shadow of Mamacoke Hill, where they might get a little relief from the wind for about a 4 minute stretch or so. Coming into the first half mile.
That's pretty close here.
It is. Looks like Yale is moving back slightly. Harvard through about now, 2:28. Yale now, 2:30.
It's deceptive, you know. We're looking at these buoys, the flags, and they're a little bit out of line, so don't hold us to the accurate splits here between the two boats. But you'll give it some sense of the difference.
I think Yale is moving back. I know Coach Gladstone likes sort of a deeper rhythm, if you will, a little bit lower, a little bit longer, a little bit harder pulling, rather than sort of rowing high, 36, 37, and that's what they're doing now.
33 for Yale.
That's exactly where they want to be.
34 for Harvard.
Maybe understroking a little bit, matching speed, maybe taking a seat here or there. That's what Yale needs to do. They are moving back on Harvard. Not quite level yet. But here finally is their big rival. These two schools can hear each other, can hear the calls of the coxswain, can hear the boat noises, if you will, the battle rattle of the oars and the oarlock. This is great stuff. Good competition.
Yeah, Yale's right in this. Maybe Harvard with a couple seats as we well through the half mile now. 3/4 of a mile gone in this race. With the mile markers coming up in 30 to 40 strokes.
This is what Yale needs to do. Hang around. Don't horse race it. Don't, oh, are we ahead or behind? You can't look at this race like that. You just have to be matching speed. If you're a little bit down, no worries. If you're a little bit up, no excitement. Just keep moving the boat.
Yeah, I'd call Harvard up maybe by 2 or 3 seats, no more than that.
Yeah, a classic race. And you know how the coxswains do is going to be very important. Can they steer accurately through the markers? Can they let their crew know what's going on? Can they tell them when there's a gust of wind coming?
Well, David Fuller, who's coxing the Harvard boat, has been at this game for a long time. Back when he was at Belmont Hill, we took him down to the Masters Nationals and put him in a couple of boats. So
that's got to be a violation of some type. We'll report that right away after the race is over.
Yeah.
But still, it's Harvard with about a half a length lead over Yale.
Both these crews rowing Empacher shells out of Germany. That's sort of the view that these are the fastest eight-man shells made in the world. Though
there's 5 minutes down. Harvard through 5:06, Yale in about 5:07.5.
Yep.
Still, they're in lockstep now with Harvard half a length ahead. Looks like Harvard trying to push a little bit here. But again, you want to push without killing yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you want to see, okay, can we get a few more inches of run?
You know, Andy,
and Harvard is doing that now. They've just taken from half a length to about 3/4 of a length.
Yeah.
And I think the coxswain Fuller looks over at the Yale bow ball. They've almost got a length. This is the exact same spot in the race where the JV did the same thing to Yale. Yale looking a little more disjointed now.
One of the things that we sometimes see is they do these pushes. So one sort of strategy is let the rate come up a little bit and go for 15, maybe 10, 15 strokes. The other is just bear down for 10 or 15 strokes at the same rating. Is there a view on that, which is right or which is wrong?
Well, there has to be agreement amongst the crew what a move entails. Which one is it? You can't have half the boat doing one thing and half the boat doing the other. That exhausts everybody. Now, Harvard is just about 1 length ahead of Yale. This is a key stretch from about 5 minutes to about 6:20, where Harvard's pushed out half a length on Yale and now has a full length lead.
Yale needs to respond to this even early in this race. They want to stay in touch. You've got to be in touch. You've got to be able to catch the other crew out of the corner of your eye.
They do. You know, the wind pattern here is a little bit tricky.
Yep.
You have glass conditions, and then you have these very dark ripples that are coming. Harvard now coming out of a dark ripple period and going into some glass. Yep. Let's see if that helps them a little bit. Yale's still in the dark ripples here.
Well, the way that
it's not a very scientific description, but
the way that happens, Andy, is with northwesterly like this from my sailing days. the wind doesn't just come straight across, it comes down in pancakes on the water, which is why you can have these big patches of absolutely glassy water, then, you know, salt and peppered with these big puffs that come down. And the coxswains can see that, and I think that one of their responsibilities is to warn the crew that it's coming so that they can hold that feather just a little bit longer and be prepared to reach a little bit longer and be a little stronger right through the pull-through to keep the boat moving into the headwind.
In the last 40 seconds, Harvard has taken a couple more seats. They've got open water now on Yale. This is not the way that Yale wanted that to go. When they were half a length down, that was great. That's right where they wanted it. Well, that's a place to be from which they could win. This is making it a little more challenging now. It's 7:50 down in the race, and Harvard's going through now about 7:53. And Yale now 7:59, about 6 seconds. So they pushed out quite significantly in that little section.
As we look at the marks here, we see very little of the current that we saw before, and I think this has something to do with the changing in the tide. The tide has been coming in, but it's not. Well, we look out in front and we do see that current.
It's still streaming,
buoys, but we do see it on a buoy here in the middle of the race.
Harvard is really pushing out now. This is not the way Yale wanted this first 2 miles to go.
Harvard at 33, Yale at 33. Almost a length now with Harvard as they approach the point here, Mamico Point, and the 2 mile mark, the freshman distance.
Well, the Yale crew has to stick together here. As we talked about in the JV race, they can't just do it on their own. Each individual guy can't just decide to put more effort into it. They've got to follow Adam Smith. But Harvard looking very horizontal. Nice blade work.
When you say horizontal, Andy, what we're talking about there is to keep the head levels, the shoulder levels even so that the boat doesn't pump up and down. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely correct. You know, you want to minimize the bounce as much as you can and just push straight back from your catch position right to the bow without too much lift of the shoulders. You don't want to heave-ho and get it up in your neck and your traps. You want to keep everything down in the quads and the low back. And Harvard's doing a nice job of that. Yeah, this wind, now we're getting a huge burst in the face here in the racing launch. Harvard's going through something now, as is Yale. And we're over 10 minutes in the race, and we're approaching halfway. That's actually a pretty good time for these conditions.
Still at 33 in the Harvard boat.
Harvard threw about 10:19. That's all unofficial, of course. And now it's a 2 mile.
Yale at 32.
Right, 10:29. So Harvard has about 10 or 11 seconds now on Yale.
Did you say 4 freshmen in this boat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. The stroke, 6, 3, and bow.
Again, they're are they all 4 internationals?
No, there's one American in there, Dave DeVries at 3C. So again, they're getting their first taste of varsity competition. It'll be interesting to talk to them after the race. And
the reason I asked you that is because the 3 of those guys are internationals, and I would assume that means that they've got a lot more experience than a normal freshman would have, let's say, coming out of a U.S. school.
But they've never raced 4 miles straight.
Well, that's true. That's true. Few get to do this. I mean, the closest thing that any of these guys see is the head races in the fall, which are 3 miles.
Sure. Now Harvard taking a commanding position, even though Yale has the Groton shore.
They seem to be a little wide here on Yale.
They do, yeah. Oliver Fletcher, the coxswain, he could be a little more to starboard. He's not in the Harvard puddles or wake of their hull, so he's doing a good job in that regard, but he could hug the Crimson buoy on the Groton shore a little bit closer, I think.
look up the course, you can see on the video, this is 1.5 miles to go with this yellow flag, signifying the 1.5 mile distance.
Is this the last race for this Harvard crew, Charlie? Are they going on, or is this the last row for the seniors in that group?
This is the last row of this boat as an 8, but members of this crew are going to continue on and row at Henley. As a matter of fact, I think we're sending 2 4s from the heavyweight program.
So Harvard through at 12:45, and we'll get you the Yale time with 1.5 miles to go. Just over the 2,000 meter distance that they typically race in the spring. And right now, about 13 minutes for Yale.
So some of these guys from this crew and the other crews will be going on to Henley to row in the Royal Regatta in early July.
By virtue of the Sprints Championship that they won.
By virtue of the Sprints Championship. The Friends of Harvard Rowing, like the Friends of Yale Rowing, meets shortly after the Sprints Championship to determine if they're deserving crews. I think that was the word we always used to use. A deserving crew to go on and put in, if you will, the icing on the cake of the regular season. You know, as we look at these two boats, the Yale boat is a conventionally rigged port starboard, port starboard, port starboard, and you'll notice in the Harvard boat, I believe it's the 2 and 3 man are on the same side.
In a bucket.
In what we call a bucket. And the rationale for that was, as a coach,
Well, I don't know what Harry's rationale for that is. There's a couple of reasons. One, scientifically, I think some smart people over in England have figured out that actually is mechanically the best way to do it. It might also be that the 2 and 3 man follow each other very, very well, or that the 3 man there is to set the pattern for the 2 man, who's told, all right, whatever the 3 man does, you mirror him exactly. So it could be a.
Is it a steering issue too? Can it be a steering issue?
It could be.
Even in an 8.
Yeah, you'll have to ask the coach why he did that. But usually most coaches say, well, it just seemed to go better when I did that. No reason, no proof, just it seems to go better.
Not wanting to give away any secrets, that's
probably not. Or, sometimes it's just an accident. Sometimes the guys put the riggers on backwards and say, oh, what the heck, let's go out and row with that.
Let's try that. We might talk a little bit about it. We're talking about the rigging of these boats. Gearing is an important part of this game. I mean, like a bicycle, these boats can be adjusted. The oar length can be adjusted. The width of the pins, the oar locks can be moved. Is this something that is constantly adjusted, depending on the race, depending on the wind, depending on the length of the race?
And depending on the years of experience that the coach has. Some coaches continue to experiment throughout their career. Others experiment until they think they find what they want, and then they just stick with it the rest of the time.
Yeah.
The biggest adjustment always is between the ears and just how the athletes move. It's still as much science as we try to apply to this crazy sport. It really does come down to feel and the human beings inside the shell and what they're trying to accomplish, as opposed to just following a strict diktat of science. There is science involved, but mostly there's human interaction.
Well, I think too that fundamentally you have to, if you want to be in either of these two boats, you want an insatiable desire to win. An indefatigable desire to win.
And to do that, to win, you have to move the boat. So you have to be passionate in pursuit of moving well with the other 7 human beings or your coxswain, and figuring out how to do that. How your power fits in with the power of others, and how, like in a chorus, if you sing the same note in harmony, you can amplify the power of the human voice. And that's what you're trying to do here with the power of human on-water propulsion.
Yeah. You can't be off-key, can you?
No, you can't.
Expect to win.
Well, yeah, and expect to win, exactly, which is what Harvard looks like they're doing now. They're a commanding lead, pushing out all the time. And the reason why I asked if this was the last time this crew is going to row together, when you're in a position like Harvard is, sometimes you can not reminisce exactly, but pour on a little extra because this is our last time this crew's going to be together.
The other thing, too, and we talked about this a little bit in the previous race, when you get tired, when you get tired, it's better to row better. It's better to row better and more precisely than it is just to add more power. And one of the advantages of a lead such as Harvard has is you can take just a fraction off the power and go faster.
It's hard to do that when you're full of vim and vigor at the starting line, but you're exactly right.
And it's hard to do when you're behind, because the natural tendency is just to row harder and harder.
Sure. That's when you do get, when this rivalry does return to equal status, that's when you get incredible performances out of the athletes. Push each other to become better, far better than they ever would if they were doing a simple training piece on their own.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's not only the individual drive to win, but there's the individual responsibility of the other 7 guys in the boat. You just don't let those guys down.
So this is going to be quite an education for those 4 freshmen in the Yale shell. They should take this as a serious report on their capabilities, but also not be discouraged by that. And, you know, good athletes, it's not that good athletes never lose, it's that good athletes can learn lessons from defeat and use them the next time. And fortunately for this entire Yale crew, there is a next time. None of these guys are graduating. They're going to have to fight off challenges from other freshmen coming in for next year. But I hope they remember this and take away some positive things, but also fix any of the negative things that might have happened and come back again next year and race the 4-miler for victory. The crew's now coming into view of the people at the Rock.
Right. Less than a half a mile to go now. And we're 19 minutes into this race.
Yeah, it's not going to be a fast race by any stretch of the imagination. One is the conditions aren't fast, and 2, Harvard has a commanding lead now. But it has been a beautiful day for racing. Aside from the wake in the 1F race, the water's been gorgeous. We've also missed that Christmas tree that was floating downstream. That seems to have been pushed off the race course.
No, there is a lot of current as we see some of the snags here in the river that is slowing this race down. I think the winning time for the record is 18 minutes, and we're well over that now.
Yeah, it's over 20 minutes in about, right now, that's a 20-minute mark. Well, now the coxswain can see the flashing blue lights of the police escort vehicles at the finish line, and the yellow flag has been raised. We're about, I'd say, about a minute before that flag drops. The water is dead flat. This would be wonderful training conditions if these conditions were extant every day on their training period up here.
Both crews now are rowing in absolutely mirror conditions as they're sheltered from the westerly by the hill that leads down to the finish line.
Well, I know this has to be a disappointment for Coach Gladstone and the excitement the guys felt coming out of the IRA. This wasn't part of the plan. They thought they could give Harvard a big challenge on this race over the distance. But perhaps the good showing of the Yale crew at the IRA awoke Harvard, too, from any possible overconfidence. Harvard has gone through now in 21:19 unofficially.
Yep.
Harvard floating, just waiting for their Yale competitors across the line. And they've done so about 21:41, about 24 seconds, something like that.
Well, a great race on both crews' parts. Harvard, it was even through the first half mile, and then Harvard took a big push and began to eke it out and then continue to move forward to win that race by 23 seconds? Is that what you said?
23.7.
23.7 seconds.
Again, it's interesting that the you know, obviously Harvard had a good IRA coming in second to a very powerful Washington crew that you said, and you know, I think they noticed that Yale had a good one too, and was a resurgent program. You could certainly make an argument for that. I think that, again, I can't speak for Harvard, but it seemed like they were determined from the beginning not to be down to Yale at all.
Right.
Even at the beginning, in the rather meaningless over 4 miles, the rather meaningless start, they were determined to take the lead from Yale and never relinquish that.
Yep. Well, it's been a beautiful, beautiful day here on the Thames River. One of the first times we've raced in the morning, but really has paid dividends in flat water and fair breezes. So we had very good, fair and even races for all 3 of the races. And to recap those, Harvard took the first race and therefore the New London Cup by beating Yale by almost 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Then the JV race, a much closer race, Andy, where both boats went almost dead even for literally almost 2 miles of that 3-mile race before Harvard took a win to win the F. Valentine Chapel Trophy. And then finally the varsity race, which we saw just completed with a 23-second win by Harvard over Yale to win the Sexton Cup. And with the winning of all 3 of these trophies, the Harvard also wins the Hoyt C. Pease and the Robert Chappell Jr. Trophy for winning
Combined effort, right?
Combined effort, winning more than 2 or more of the races. It's also a great win for Harry Parker, and I know this is a building year, and for Steve Gladstone, but despite the losses, I'm sure that Yale will be even ever stronger with the recruits that they're getting. So, a great day on the water. Any last thoughts, Andy, about your view of the races and how they went?
Well, let's meet again next year, you know, at the same body of water, probably downstream.
We'd also...
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say there are a lot of thank yous that need to go out, not only to the U.S. rowing referees that helped ensure that the race went off fairly and safely, the Coast Guard that was kind enough to close the river for us. It makes a big difference when we have flat water to race in, and the Coast Guard is very much a part of making that happen. And also a thank you out to the owner of the Camelot, the crew, the committee boat on which we've been riding this year, last year, and the years before. It's always fun to come out on a proper boat to be able to watch these races. So that's the end of the 148th. Andy and I are going to be around for the 49th, the 50th, until they tell us that they can't stand us anymore. So we'll pass it back to the studio with a goodbye for this year, and we'll see you next. Take care.
Take care.